Ohio Republican Senate candidate J.D. Vance is receiving harsh pushback this morning after he suggested in a newly resurfaced video that people should stay in unhappy marriages, even if they are violent. Vice News published Vance's comments from last September when he was speaking to Pacifica Christian High School. He was responding to a moderator who had referenced Vance's grandparents' relationship before asking what causes one generation to give up on fatherhood and others to stick it out.
This is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages. And I think that's what all of us should be honest about, is we've run this experiment in real time, and what we have is a lot of very, very real family dysfunction that's making our kids unhappy.
In his best-selling book, Hillbilly Elegy, Vance describes his grandparents' marriage as chaotic and violent, even telling one story where his grandmother lit his grandfather on fire, who had to be saved by their 11-year-old daughter. Vance explains that their marriage improved by the time he was born, and he credits them as being a stable force in his life. In a statement to Vice News, the Vance campaign responded in part, as anyone who studies these issues knows, domestic violence has skyrocketed in recent years and is much higher among non-married couples. That's the trick I reference, that domestic violence would somehow go down if progressives got what they want, when in fact, modern society's war on families has made our domestic violence situation much worse. Any fair person would recognize I was criticizing the progressive frame on this issue, not embracing it. He added, I'm an actual victim of domestic violence in my life. I have seen siblings, wives, daughters, and myself abused by men. It's disgusting for you to argue that I was defending those men. So that's his lengthy statement, Elise Jordan, but obviously his remarks, so striking, raised a lot of eyebrows. What's your sense of it as to how reflective they are about where the Republican Party is right now about women?
I think J.D. Vance is a troll, so I really don't want to give these comments more air than necessary, because that's what he wants us to do. He wants us to sit around and talk about the most incendiary things that he says. As to where the Republican Party is, I don't even know if it's just the Republican Party, but a lot of these laws around the entire country that are coming to light. And I wanted to ask Claire about a law in Missouri that pregnant women can't divorce their spouses, even if they're being abused, if they're pregnant. And what is that? Can you explain that? Because in the aftermath of Roe versus Wade, reading about that law was very disturbing.
Yeah, I can't explain it. I mean, there is no explanation for what Missouri's doing. It is the home of government mandated pregnancy. It's the home of the government telling young girls who have been repeatedly raped by a relative or a stepfather that they must carry that child to term. It is the home of crazy when it comes to how the Missouri legislature has looked at women. And I know, Elise, we don't want to give J.D. Vance a bunch of airtime on this, but I got to tell you, first of all, we've got to correct what he said. Domestic violence has not skyrocketed. Secondly, the idea that women having more power in this country has somehow made children worse, that the economic changes that have allowed women to escape violent marriages and protect their children. I am someone who has watched children die because of domestic violence, because the women did not have the ability to escape violence. So this notion that he thinks he belongs in the United States Senate today, when he says that somehow women who are in a violent relationship for the sake of their children should stick it out, it's disgusting. And Ohio needs to wake up, because this is really scary, nutty stuff. This makes Trump kind of look normal in some ways.